In a pivotal moment for transatlantic relations, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has embarked on a crucial visit to Brussels for a NATO meeting, marking a significant shift in U.S. foreign policy under the Trump administration. As tensions rise over the ongoing war in Ukraine and the U.S.'s role within NATO, Rubio's visit arrives amid growing concerns among European allies about the future of their partnership with America. Rubio's arrival at NATO headquarters comes at a time when the alliance's cohesion is tested by President Trump's recent rhetoric and policies. The Secretary of State is expected to reiterate Trump's calls for a swift conclusion to the conflict in Ukraine, a stance that has alarmed many European leaders who fear it may lead to appeasement of Russia. President Trump has made clear he supports NATO. "We're going to remain in NATO," Rubio stated, attempting to reassure allies while also emphasizing the need for increased military spending among member nations. The backdrop of this meeting is defined by a stark contrast to the Biden administration's approach, characterized by a commitment to NATO's collective defense and a unified stance against Russian aggression. Rubio's visit is seen as an attempt to mitigate the fears stemming from Trump's previous remarks about potentially withdrawing from NATO, a move that would significantly undermine the alliance formed to counter Russian influence. Concerns about the Trump administration's strategy were further compounded by the recent announcement of 20% tariffs on imports from the European Union, which Trump labeled as rip-offs. This aggressive economic stance has added to the unease among European leaders, who are wary of a potential shift towards isolationism and unilateralism in U.S. foreign policy. Rubio's meetings with NATO ministers are set against a backdrop of urgent discussions surrounding military spending. He expressed hopes for all NATO members to increase their defense budgets to 5% of GDP, far exceeding the existing target of 2%. This expectation reflects Trump's broader narrative that European nations have been economically benefiting at the expense of U.S. taxpayers, a sentiment echoed in private communications among Trump administration officials which were inadvertently exposed to the media. Compounding these challenges is Trump's controversial desire to acquire Greenland, a move that has bewildered NATO allies, particularly Denmark, which governs the territory. While Rubio's discussions may touch upon this sensitive topic, it remains unclear whether any progress can be made given Denmark's insistence on Greenland's right to self-determination. As Rubio navigates this complex political landscape in Brussels, his role as a pro-NATO figure within the Trump administration could be pivotal in shaping the alliance's future direction. While he has the potential to temper some of Trump's more radical ideas, the extent to which he can influence U.S. policy remains uncertain, particularly in light of Trump's unpredictable leadership style and his strained relationship with established diplomatic norms. Looking ahead, the outcomes of Rubio's meetings at NATO could have lasting implications for U.S.-European relations and the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, as European leaders seek to maintain their support for Kyiv. They will be closely watching how the Trump administration balances its domestic agenda with the need for a united front against Russian aggression. The forthcoming discussions will not only test the resilience of NATO but also signal the future trajectory of U.S. foreign policy under a president who has shown a willingness to disrupt long-standing alliances in pursuit of his vision. In a poignant expression of filial pride and national concern, Mitch Leavitt of Bailey's Harbor, Wisconsin, penned a letter that reflects on the legacy of his father, a World War II Army veteran. In his correspondence published in the Door County Pulse, Leavitt recounts the harrowing experiences of his father, who served as a platoon sergeant in some of the most brutal battles of the South Pacific. Describing a particularly intense moment when his father risked his life to save a terrified recruit, Leavitt illustrates the deep emotional scars that war leaves on those who serve. "My father went to the other side of the world to defend and promote democracy for us and the rest of humanity," Leavitt wrote, underscoring a sentiment that resonates deeply in today's geopolitical climate. He expresses concern over the current political landscape, suggesting that actions taken by figures like former President Donald Trump and the newly installed Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth undermine the very principles that motivated countless American heroes, including his father. Leavitt draws parallels between historical battles for democracy and the ongoing struggle in Ukraine, framing it as an opportunity for the United States to stand against authoritarianism without deploying troops. He urges a collective recognition of the stakes involved if we don't take advantage of this opportunity. It is likely that a less desirable option will eventually be our only choice. The backdrop of Leavitt's reflections coincides with significant developments in U.S. military leadership and policy under Hegseth, who has faced scrutiny due to allegations of misconduct and controversial policy directives. Recently, reports have surfaced regarding Hegseth's push to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives within the military. This culminated in the removal of nearly 400 books from the U.S. Naval Academy Library, a decision made after Hegseth instructed officials to review materials that promote DEI principles. The move has drawn criticism from lawmakers and citizens alike, raising questions about the implications of such actions for military culture and inclusivity. In another controversial directive, Hegseth mandated that all physical fitness tests for combat roles be made sex-neutral. A decision that has sparked fears among women in the military about potential restrictions on their roles. Critics argue that such policies could adversely impact recruitment and retention efforts among women who already face unique challenges in a historically male-dominated environment. Lori Fenner, a veteran and advocate for servicewomen, expressed skepticism about Hegseth's intentions, noting that any changes to standards must be carefully considered to avoid alienating those they seek to include. As the military navigates these turbulent waters, the tension between tradition and modernity becomes increasingly pronounced. Hegseth's administration appears poised to reshape the military landscape, yet the response from lawmakers, veterans, and the broader public will likely determine the trajectory of these changes. Looking ahead, the juxtaposition of Leavitt's tribute to his father and the evolving military policies under Hegseth serves as a reminder of the enduring legacy of service and the ongoing responsibility to uphold democratic values. The coming months will reveal whether the current administration can balance the need for operational readiness and inclusivity, or if its actions will deepen divisions within the ranks. As the world watches, the implications of these decisions will echo far beyond the confines of the military, shaping the future of American democracy itself. In a move that has sparked considerable debate, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is advocating for a ban on the use of Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program SNAP benefits to purchase sugary drinks, particularly soda. With sugary beverages identified as a leading source of added sugars in the American diet, many nutrition experts agree that reducing soda consumption could benefit public health. However, the proposed ban has drawn skepticism from food policy experts who question its potential effectiveness in improving dietary habits among SNAP recipients. Kennedy's initiative, which encourages states to explore the prohibition, would need to be administered by the U.S. Department of Agriculture and may require congressional approval. While the intent is to curb obesity and related health issues, critics argue that simply restricting access to soda may not lead to significant health improvements. Joel Berg, CEO of Hunger Free America, emphasizes that addressing the root causes of unhealthy diets involves making nutritious foods more affordable and accessible rather than restricting choices. If we really want to improve public health, we ought to make healthier food more affordable, more physically available, and convenient, he stated. Natalie Kaya, a Portland-based single mother of 4, offers a personal perspective on the issue. Having relied on SNAP intermittently for over a decade, she views soda purchases as a small yet meaningful treat for her children. "The more choice I have, I feel more dignity," Kaya remarked, indicating that such choices contribute to her sense of security and well-being. She highlighted the challenges many families face in accessing healthy foods, often prioritizing convenience over nutrition due to financial constraints. Experts like Dariush Mozaffarian, director of the Food as Medicine Institute at Tufts University, suggest that incentivizing healthier choices through positive reinforcement, such as providing more funds for fruits and vegetables, could lead to better dietary habits. It's a way of preserving choice and nudging people towards healthier behaviors, he explained. Mozaffarian acknowledges the potential value of discouraging sugary drink consumption among those receiving federal assistance but emphasizes the need for a balanced approach that includes both negative and positive incentives. The beverage industry has also weighed in on the debate, with representatives arguing that the majority of SNAP recipients are working individuals struggling to make ends meet. Meredith Potter, senior vice president at America Beverage, emphasized that treating these individuals as second-class citizens could exacerbate their challenges. She noted that consumption patterns among SNAP users are not significantly different from those who do not receive benefits, suggesting that a ban may not yield the desired outcomes. While the conversation around SNAP and soda continues, it aligns with broader concerns regarding public health and nutrition in the U.S. The current landscape reveals an urgent need for comprehensive strategies that address food accessibility and affordability, particularly for low-income families. As obesity rates and diet-related diseases continue to rise, the implications of Kennedy's proposal could extend far beyond the realm of soda consumption. Looking ahead, the success of any initiatives aimed at improving public health will likely depend on a collaborative approach incorporating insights from nutrition experts, public health advocates, and the communities most affected by these policies. As debates unfold, it remains clear that simply restricting choices may not be the most effective path toward healthier dietary practices and improved quality of life for Americans, particularly those reliant on SNAP benefits. In a striking development, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has labeled 3 individuals accused of vandalizing Tesla vehicles and charging stations as domestic terrorist signaling, a robust response to a series of attacks targeting properties associated with the electric car manufacturer. The escalating tensions surrounding Tesla, particularly due to its CEO Elon Musk's controversial ties to the Trump administration, have raised concerns about the implications of these actions and the broader societal context in which they occur. Bondi announced on March 20, 2025 that the 3 defendants operating across Colorado, Oregon, and South Carolina face serious charges, including the use of high-powered weapons and explosives in their attacks. The days of committing crimes without consequence have ended, Bondi stated, emphatically adding, "Let this be a warning. If you join this wave of domestic terrorism against Tesla properties, the Department of Justice will put you behind bars." Each suspect is looking at a minimum of 5 years in prison, with potential maximum sentences reaching 20 years should they be convicted. The incidents in question include a violent attack on a Tesla dealership in Loveland, Colorado, where Lucy Grace Nelson allegedly attempted to ignite vehicles with Molotov cocktails while spray painting Nazi cars across the property. Meanwhile, in Oregon, Adam Matthew Lansky is accused of launching 8 Molotov cocktails at a Tesla dealership, returning later to shoot at the premises. In South Carolina, Daniel Clark Ponder allegedly vandalized charging stations with anti-Trump messages before setting them ablaze. Despite the gravity of these charges, there is skepticism regarding the classification of these acts as domestic terrorism. Legal experts have noted that the current charges may not meet the legal threshold for such a designation, raising questions about Bondi's intent and the potential politicization of the situation. President Trump has echoed Bondi's sentiment, expressing a strong desire to bring those responsible to justice, referring to them as bad guys. The fallout from these events has also sparked a fierce political exchange. Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett has openly criticized Bondi's remarks, perceiving them as a threat following her own comments about Musk during a rally for the Tesla takedown movement, which aimed to protest Musk's management style and his influence on federal agencies. Crockett stated, "To have her go on Fox News and to then decide that she wanted to send a threat to me, it was wrong," underscoring her commitment to free speech and nonviolent protest. Crockett's remarks have amplified the discourse surrounding corporate influence in politics, with her characterizations of Musk as a crook drawing attention to the perceived inequities in federal contracting and law enforcement protection. She emphasized her call for peaceful protests and urged her supporters to consult legal advice before engaging in demonstrations, striving to maintain a focus on lawful expressions of dissent. The tensions between Crockett and Bondi highlight the growing polarization surrounding Musk and Tesla as public sentiment shifts amid ongoing protests and vandalism. As this situation evolves, the implications for Tesla, its stakeholders, and broader civil discourse in America remain to be seen. The intersection of corporate power, political rhetoric, and public action continues to shape the narrative, making it imperative for stakeholders to navigate these challenges thoughtfully as they unfold. In a pivotal moment for U.S. trade policy, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has urged international leaders to refrain from retaliating against newly announced tariffs by President Donald Trump. In a candid interview with CNN, Bessent emphasized the need for restraint, advising everybody sit back, take a deep breath, don't immediately retaliate. Let's see where this goes, because if you retaliate, that's how we get escalation. This call for calm comes on the heels of Trump's declaration of a series of tariffs, which he heralded as a significant step towards America's economic independence during a press event in the White House Rose Garden. On April 2, Trump outlined a 10% baseline tariff on a broad range of imports, in addition to steeper penalties on certain trading partners, 34% on China, 20% on the European Union, and 24% on Japan, among others. Notably, Canada and Mexico were excluded from these tariffs, likely due to ongoing negotiations related to the trilateral trade agreement. The tariffs are set to take effect at midnight on April 9, raising concerns among economists and market analysts about potential retaliatory actions that could spiral into a trade war. Bessent's remarks reflect an acute awareness of the historical context surrounding trade deficits and surpluses. He pointed out, "Remember the history of trade. We are the deficit country. The deficit country has an advantage. The surplus countries traditionally always lose in trade escalations." His perspective underscores a belief that retaliatory measures could harm both the U.S. and its trading partners, complicating an already tense economic landscape. In a separate discussion, Bessent addressed the recent turmoil in the stock market, which many analysts attribute to a sell-off in technology stocks rather than the tariffs themselves. He stated, "I'm trying to be Secretary of Treasury, not a market commentator," while clarifying that the downturn was linked to an adverse reaction to a competitive AI startup rather than trade policy. His comments suggest a nuanced understanding of the factors influencing market behavior, as the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite Index has struggled amid fears of slowed economic growth and inflation. The immediate consequences of the tariff announcements were palpable, with significant declines in major stock indices, including a nearly 4% drop in S&P 500 futures and a loss of over 1,100 points in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Despite these developments, Bessent maintains a cautiously optimistic outlook, asserting that the market will stabilize if the right economic conditions are established. As global leaders digest the implications of Trump's tariff strategy, the coming weeks will be critical. The potential for retaliatory measures looms large, and the economic fallout from these tariffs could have far-reaching effects on international trade dynamics. With Bessent's call for patience resonating amid uncertainty, the global community watches closely to see whether nations will heed the advice to avoid escalation, or if they will respond with countermeasures that could further complicate an already volatile economic landscape. As the situation evolves, the interplay between trade policy and market reactions will undoubtedly shape the financial narrative in the months ahead. In a bold move to reshape international trade dynamics, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick recently expressed confidence that the new reciprocal tariffs introduced by the Trump administration will compel countries worldwide to reassess their trade policies with the United States. Speaking in an interview with CNBC, Lutnick articulated a vision of a reordering of global trade that prioritizes American goods and addresses what he characterized as unfair trade practices. The tariffs announced by President Trump include a blanket 10% duty on all imported products alongside specific rates for individual trading partners. Lutnick emphasized that these measures aim to counteract long-standing non-tariff barriers that have hindered U.S. market access. "This is the reordering of fair trade," he stated during his appearance on Squawk Box. "It's about those non-tariff trade barriers. That's what we are addressing." Lutnick's comments come at a time when the U.S. economy shows signs of slowing down, raising concerns among economists about the potential for a global trade war and inflationary pressures. In February, the U.S. recorded a staggering $122.7 billion trade deficit, a figure that has surged 86% compared to the same period in 2024. Such statistics underscore the urgency of the administration's approach as it grapples with the complexities of international trade relationships. While Lutnick remained optimistic about the long-term benefits of the tariffs, he acknowledged the immediate backlash from financial markets. Following the announcement, futures linked to the Dow Jones Industrial Average plunged by over 1,100 points, reflecting widespread apprehension among traders regarding the implications of escalating trade tensions. I expect most countries to start to really examine their trade policy towards the United States of America and stop picking on us, he remarked, signaling a desire for a more equitable trading environment. Despite the aggressive stance, Lutnick dismissed the notion of exemptions from the tariffs, arguing instead for a broad approach focused on fairness. I don't think the word exemption is going to be a factor. I think what there's going to be is a world of fairness, he said, suggesting that the administration will pursue negotiations aimed at ensuring that American agricultural products receive fair treatment in global markets. As the administration prepares to engage with various nations over trade, Lutnick's comments reflect a strategic pivot intended to bolster U.S. exports while addressing grievances about market access. However, the path ahead remains fraught with challenges. Analysts fear that the aggressive tariff measures could provoke retaliation, further complicating an already intricate global trade landscape. As this situation unfolds, all eyes will be on how foreign governments respond to the U.S. tariffs and whether Lutnick's vision of a more equitable trade framework can be realized. The outcome may not only influence the immediate economic environment but also shape international trade policies for years to come, setting the stage for a new era of global commerce.